No one really prepares us for this part of life. When we were younger, we were told that aging was about slowing down, that things like intimacy or desire would eventually fade away and honestly should be left behind. I remember a friend saying to me once, "At our age, what's the point?" And back then I nodded like I agreed. But now, having lived through those years myself, I can say this from my heart: he was wrong. What if I told you that one of the simplest, most natural things you can do, alone in the quiet privacy of your own home, could protect your heart, keep your prostate healthy, help you sleep better, and even lift your spirits? What if I said that science, not just old stories or opinions, backs this up? I'm talking about self-pleasure, something a lot of folks feel embarrassed to mention, especially after 60. But here in this conversation on this channel, Elderly Reflections, we talk about what matters to us seniors, openly, honestly, and without shame. Because when we understand how our body works and what it still needs, we have a better chance of living fully, with dignity, with strength, and with joy. This isn't about lust, it's about longevity. It's not about sex for the sake of pleasure. Though hey, that's not a bad thing either. It's about health, it's about self-respect, and it's about realizing that just because our hair has gone gray or our steps have slowed, it doesn't mean we stop caring for the body we've lived in all these years. Let's begin with something that affects nearly every man I know over 60, the prostate. That little gland most of us didn't think about in our youth becomes a major source of concern later in life. Whether it's waking up 5 times a night to pee, the uncomfortable feeling of not emptying your bladder, or worse, being told you have benign prostatic hyperplasia, or even cancer, it's a real issue. Now, what's fascinating is that studies have shown that men who regularly ejaculate tend to have significantly lower risks of developing prostate cancer. Why? Well, every time you release, your body flushes out toxins. Fluids that might otherwise sit there, building up over time, are cleared out. That reduces inflammation, lowers congestion, and keeps that part of your system running smoothly. Think of it like an old car. Leave it sitting too long in the garage without running it, and the engine starts to clog, the oil gets sludgy, the parts start sticking. But start it up regularly, even just to idle, and it stays alive. Your prostate is no different. Regular activity, yes, even solo, keeps it healthier. Let me tell you a little story about a man I met in Arizona, named Walter. Walter's 82, lost his wife a few years back. One of those guys who wakes up at 3 a.m. every night to go to the bathroom and then can't get back to sleep. Frustrated, exhausted, starting to feel like his body was just breaking down. At his checkup, his doctor didn't just hand him more pills. He actually asked Walter about his sexual activity. Walter, a little red in the face, admitted he hadn't done much of anything since his wife passed. His doctor nodded and said, "I want you to try adding a little solo intimacy to your weekly routine. No pressure, just give it a try." Walter laughed about it later, told me he felt silly. But he did it, quietly, with no big expectations. 2 months later, he told me he was waking up only once a night. Sometimes not at all. He felt more rested. He even felt more like himself again. And that's the part we overlook. When your prostate is happy, it affects everything. Sleep, energy. You might think this is just anecdotal, but the science backs it. A study in the journal European Urology found that frequent ejaculation, 21 times a month, was linked to a 33% lower risk of prostate cancer. It doesn't have to be with a partner. It just has to be regular, gentle, respectful. If there's one message I wish more men over 60 could hear without shame, it's this. It's okay, it's healthy, you're not being selfish, you're being responsible. Now let's talk about the heart, because after all, it's the engine that keeps the whole system running. And here's something many seniors don't know. Sexual activity, even self-stimulation, has the same cardiovascular benefits as light exercise. Yep, your heart rate increases, your blood vessels expand, and oxygen flows better through your entire system. Studies have shown that men who stay sexually active, even just a few times a week, have lower blood pressure and better circulation than those who don't. It's not magic, it's movement. It's biology. Let me share another story. Harold, a retired basketball coach from Oregon, 75 years old. He was always fit in his youth, but around 70 he started feeling sluggish, tired all the time. He chalked it up to age. His doctor checked his vitals and found rising blood pressure. Rather than pushing pills right away, the doc talked to Harold about lifestyle habits. One of those habits was keeping up intimacy. Harold was skeptical but figured, what do I have to lose? 3 months in, he reported not only better numbers on the blood pressure cuff, but more energy, improved sleep, and a little spring in his step he hadn't felt in years. Now listen, I'm not saying self-pleasure is a miracle cure, but it is one of those natural tools we tend to forget we still have. It's free, it's accessible, and it engages systems in your body that need to stay blood flow, muscle tone, hormone regulation, all of these benefit. The heart especially responds well to it. And the alternative? Well, if blood isn't circulating well, your feet get cold, your energy dips, your risk of clots increases, and your arteries start to stiffen. Over time, this leads to hypertension, fatigue, and even heart failure. But staying engaged with your body, gently, respectfully, lovingly, can change that trajectory. It's about giving your heart a reason to keep beating strong. Before we go into the next section, I want to say something from my heart. If you've made it this far, and if something in this resonates with you, I want to invite you to subscribe to Elderly Reflection. We're building a place where conversations like this are welcomed, where aging doesn't mean silence, where senior health, motivation, and real inspiration are shared like stories by the fire. So hit that subscribe button, tap the bell, and if you feel called to share your thoughts, drop a comment below. Maybe tell me how old you are, or where you're watching from. I read every message and it reminds me we're not alone out here. Now let me tell you something that most men over 60 won't bring up. Not at family dinners, not at the barbershop, and definitely not at church. But they think about it, they worry about it, they suffer through it in silence. I'm talking about bladder control. That quiet, slow battle that starts as an annoyance and turns into a nightly ritual of interrupted sleep, embarrassment, and frustration. It starts with waking up once or twice at night, then maybe 3 or 4 times. And before you know it, you're checking every store and restaurant for the nearest bathroom before you even sit down. If that sounds familiar, I want you to lean in for this part, because there's something you can do that doesn't involve invasive treatments, surgeries, or endless pills. And yes, it's the same simple habit we've been talking about. You see, the pelvic floor muscles, those are the muscles that help control urination and support the bladder. They weaken as we age. That's just biology, and for a lot of men, when those muscles start to fail, bladder leaks, urgency, and even dribbling become part of daily life. Now here's the science. Regular sexual activity, even solo, engages and strengthens those same pelvic floor muscles. That's right, every time you stimulate that part of your body, you're essentially giving it a little workout. And you're keeping the muscles involved in bladder control strong and responsive. It's a built-in form of maintenance that no one tells you about. I want to tell you about a man I met during a senior wellness talk last year in Colorado. His name's Jim. He's 75, a retired firefighter, and a proud guy who's always been active, always been in control. But one day he stood up, looked a little uncomfortable, and shared that he was waking up 4 to 5 times a night just to pee. He felt exhausted. His days were dragging, and the worst part was the anxiety of never being able to go far from a bathroom. He was starting to turn down travel, visits to his grandkids, even church on Sundays. His doctor gave him some surprising advice. He said, "Jim, I want you to start focusing on pelvic strength. Kegels if you're up for it, but more importantly, don't ignore sexual activity. Keep that part of your life alive." At first, Jim laughed. "You want me to do what?" But he took it seriously. And within just a few weeks, he said the difference was noticeable. Fewer trips to the bathroom, less string, more control, and a quiet boost in confidence. It gave him a sense of dignity back. Here's why this works. Ejaculation increases blood flow to the pelvic area. It clears old fluids. It prevents stagnation. And when things aren't stagnant, they don't inflame. They don't clog. They function the way nature intended. It's not a miracle, it's biology. It's a form of senior health maintenance that too many of us overlook out of shame or outdated ideas about aging. And there's another layer to this, one that hits even deeper. Regular release doesn't just support your bladder, it strengthens your sense of identity, your relationship with your own body, your confidence. Because when you stop using a part of yourself, it's easy to feel like that part no longer belongs to you. But staying connected, even through something as private as self-pleasure, helps you say, "I'm still here, I still matter, I still feel." And now let's talk about another layer that's even harder to admit, but might be the most important of all: mental well-being. Because aging isn't just about bones and joints and pills and little plastic boxes. It's about how we feel inside. It's about loneliness. It's about loss. It's about waking up in a quiet house and wondering what happened to the noise, the laughter, the people. It's about wondering if you're still relevant, still desirable, still needed. Aging brings with it a quiet kind of grief. And for many seniors, that grief turns inward, into sadness, anxiety, even depression. I've seen it in friends who were once lively and full of stories. Now they sit silent, withdrawn. And you know what's wild? Science shows that sexual release can actually fight back against that darkness. When you engage in intimacy, your brain releases something powerful. Endorphins, dopamine, oxytocin. These chemicals are natural antidepressants. They calm anxiety, they lift your mood. They give you a burst of light in what might feel like a long gray tunnel. Let me tell you about Frank. Frank is 73. He lost his wife Emma after 40 years together. She was his anchor, his joy. After she passed, Frank said the days felt endless. He couldn't focus on books anymore. Didn't want to go out, food had no taste, and sleep, forget about it. His doctor gently suggested finding healthy outlets for his grief, including the kind we're discussing now. At first, Frank thought it was inappropriate. That's for young people, he said. But the doctor explained that keeping that part of himself alive wasn't dishonoring Emma. It was honoring life. Frank tried, quietly, gently, and slowly something shifted. He said it wasn't about lust. It was about connection. It reminded him he was still human, that his body still had purpose, that he could still feel joy if even for a few minutes. It was a tiny act. There's also something else at play here. When you engage in this habit, you're not just releasing stress, you're reaffirming your value. You're saying to yourself, I'm not done yet. I still deserve to feel good. I still deserve to care for myself. And I think that's one of the most important messages we can pass on to each other as men growing older. That pleasure, connection, self-worth, they don't expire with age, they deepen. So many men struggle silently with emotional decline in their senior years. They don't talk about it, but you can see it in their eyes. That blank stare, that quiet sadness. And if something as natural and simple as self-pleasure can provide even a little relief, even a little spark of comfort, why wouldn't we embrace it? Why wouldn't we normalize it? My friend, aging doesn't mean we stop being human. It doesn't mean we stop needing touch, needing closeness, needing release. And whether you're in a relationship or not, that need doesn't just vanish. Ignoring it doesn't make it go away. It just makes us feel more disconnected from ourselves, more ashamed of what we still are. And that's not what this life stage should be about. It should be about finding peace, finding simplicity, finding joy in the smallest things, including ourselves. Let's start by circling back to something we touched on earlier, prostate disease. You see, most men think that once prostate issues begin, it's just the beginning of the end. They accept the medications, the biopsies, sometimes even the surgeries because they think there's no other way. But what if I told you that a consistent natural habit could play a powerful role in not just managing prostate problems, but preventing them in the first place? The truth is, your prostate is a workhorse. Its main job is to produce the fluid that supports and transports sperm. But when you stop releasing that fluid, it begins to build up. It stagnates. That stagnation causes inflammation, swelling, and in the long run, real disease. We're not just talking discomfort or dribbling. We're talking about conditions like benign prostatic hyperplasia, and even worse, prostate cancer. One of the most compelling studies I've seen on this topic followed over 30,000 men for more than a decade. It found that men who ejaculated 21 times a month had up to a 33% lower risk of developing prostate cancer than those who did not. That's not a small number. That's life-changing, and here's the best part. It doesn't have to involve anyone but you. You don't need a partner. You don't need performance. You just need consistency. Your body doesn't care whether it's part of a romantic evening or a quiet moment of self-care. What matters is that your system keeps moving, that your gland keeps functioning, that those fluids don't just sit there and cause damage. I think of John, a 69-year-old Vietnam vet I met at a support group. He had just started experiencing the early signs of prostate enlargement, nighttime urination, pressure, weak stream. He thought, well, this is it. But a urologist told him, you need to get that system working again. Don't let it stagnate. Even if it's just you and your thoughts, do it regularly. And he did. Not only did his symptoms begin to ease, but his urologist noted measurable improvement in his prostate size and function over the following months. He laughed when he told me, Dad, it's like changing the oil in your truck. You don't wait until the engine fails. You keep it running smooth. And that's the wisdom I want to pass on. In this stage of life, it's not about doing more. It's about doing smarter, being proactive, being intentional. That's what true elderly wisdom looks like. Now let's talk about something that might be even more important than prostate health: sleep. Sweet, blessed, elusive sleep. If you're anything like me or any of the men I've spoken to, you probably don't sleep like you used to. You toss, you turn, you get up in the middle of the night for the bathroom. You can't get comfortable. And even if you sleep 8 hours, you wake up feeling like you barely slept at all. And here's what no one tells you. As we age, our bodies change the way we sleep. Our hormone levels shift, our stress levels rise, our brain chemistry changes. And it becomes harder and harder to drift into that deep, healing rest we need. But guess what? Sexual release, yes, even solo, can dramatically improve sleep quality. Here's why. When you orgasm, your body releases a cocktail of powerful hormones. Oxytocin, prolactin, and endorphins, these are your body's natural relaxation chemicals. They help quiet the mind, relax your muscles, lower your cortisol levels, the stress hormone that keeps you tense and alert. And when those levels drop, your body enters a state of peace, calm, and restfulness. I once met Robert, a retired school teacher who told me he hadn't had a full night's sleep in over 5 years. He tried everything: melatonin, warm milk, fancy pillows, meditation apps. Nothing worked. His doctor mentioned offhand a connection between sexual activity and sleep. Robert chuckled at first, but out of desperation, he gave it a try. He began ending his evenings with quiet self-intimacy, a way to calm himself down, not just physically, but emotionally. Within a couple of weeks, he told me something I'll never forget. For the first time in years, I closed my eyes and didn't open them again until morning. That's the kind of rest we all crave. Not just sleep, but rest. True, full-body restoration. And there's another piece to this puzzle that doesn't get enough attention: circadian rhythm. As we get older, our internal body clock can fall out of sync. We get sleepy at odd hours, wake up too early, struggle to stay alert during the day. But studies have shown that regular sexual activity helps to regulate these rhythms. It's like resetting your clock. Your body learns when to release melatonin, when to relax, when to shut down. And that's a gift you can give yourself, without prescriptions, without side effects. So if you're tired, really tired, of being tired, maybe the solution isn't in another pill. Maybe it's in reconnecting with yourself, with your body, with the rhythm nature intended. Now I want to say something to you directly. If you've listened to all 3 parts of this video, I want you to hear this from me like a brother, a father, a friend. You matter. Your comfort matters. Your rest matters. Your well-being, mental, physical, emotional, it still matters. And the choices you make today, even the smallest ones, can shape the quality of your life in the months and years to come. So here's what I ask of you. Take care of yourself, not just with vitamins and doctor visits, but with love, with compassion, with dignity. You're not just surviving, still living, still growing, still capable of pleasure, of peace, of joy. And if one small private habit can help you feel more in control, more alive, and more connected to yourself, why wouldn't you embrace it? This conversation may not be for everyone, but if it's for you, then I hope it gives you the courage to reflect, to try, and to prioritize your own well-being in a way that feels true and right for you. And now, before we part ways, I'd love to hear from you. Where are you watching from today? Are you in the US? Abroad? Are you 60, 70, 80, or beyond? I invite you to leave a comment below, share your story, your thoughts, or even just a word to say, I'm here. Your presence means more than you know. And if this video helped you in any way, would you do me a favor? Click that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss our next video. Until next time, sleep well, stay strong, and never forget the quiet power you still carry within you.